friends. I am trying to figure out this camera. What are we seeing here? It is 11:36 a.m. It is Wednesday, October 22nd. Yeah. Wednesday, October 22nd. It is 11:36 daylight saving time in New York, Eastern Standard Time generally. It is such a pleasure to be here and to spend some time with you. I am waiting to see if some of the friends are going to be coming on live. Hi to all the people in the future. If you're watching this as a playback, I'm talking to you. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. Good night. I hope you are having a fantastic time wherever you are. And you're going to settle in for a little bit of a book chat and a little bit of reading. So my current read is this book, Abby Jimenez, yours truly, and I am loving it. I'm just around page 76. Didn't get a chance to read much after I wrapped up with you yesterday because I have been watching movies and hanging out with my family and doing a lot of just stuff, administrative family stuff. I went to the library yesterday and I picked up some books. I'll share that with you. I've also been thinking about some book lists. I'll share that with you as well. So, a project that I had started working on earlier in the year was I wanted to do a video where I read and discussed epistolary novels because it is such a passion of mine to read letters and to used to write a lot of letters. I used to have a lot of pen pals. And I have one pen pal from my childhood who is still a really good friend. She is still the person that I call my best friend, even though we don't see each other very often. We both live in the United States now. When we were in high school, we were both in Jamaica. And yeah, what I'm saying is that I used to really love writing letters and exchanging letter type things with friends. These days, I don't do too much of it. I still have some friends who occasionally send me letters, and a couple of weeks ago, I have this group of friends who we started as internet friends, and then we became text message friends, voicemail message friends. And you can't really put a label on friends. You're either friends or you're not. So once you become friends, it doesn't matter how you became friends. You're just you're friends. So they've sent me and shared things in the mail, which I absolutely love. So yeah, I love letter writing. I love books about letter writing. And so a project that I started this year was to read epistolary novels and make a review video where I presented a list and told you what I thought about some of the books. And I started this project, I think, so officially my first read of the year is going to be one of the books that's in the project, and that's 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hanf. But when I read that book on January 1st, I wasn't thinking about this epistolary project. The project came around in February or March. I think in February is when I kind of came up with it that I wanted to do it. And then I started reading the book, started gathering and reading the books in March. So I'll tell you, because I love a book list, I'll tell you some of the titles that I had in mind back then. And I'll tell you some more that I've added since. So for epistolary books, the goal was to read the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, which I did read and made a lot of videos about, which those videos, some of them have since been deleted. A few of them are still sitting on my phone, and a lot of content surrounding that because I had a very emotional reaction to reading that book. And I would highly recommend it, even if, I can't talk too much about the book in this space. But the Guernsey Litter and Potato Peel Society happens. The setting of the book is like right after World War II, where people are still, we're still talking to people who were active during the war. And you're seeing some of the characters in that book trying to recover from the events of World War II. So the book happens on the Guernsey Islands, the Channel Islands in off the coast of England. And I learned some things about World War II situations and how it impacted real people, how people were displaced and what their lives looked like when they were upended. And of course, some of the emotional damage and how people recover from that was all contained in that book. And I cried almost the second half of the book. I cried like all the way through. But I love the book, so I'd highly recommend it. That's the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. Other books that were on my list for that project were Ella Minnow P, which, if you say it really fast, is LMNOP. Ella Minnow P. I haven't read that one yet. It's a smaller book I'd gotten from the library, just had to return it before I got a chance to read it. Another smallish book was Little Blue Encyclopedia. That's also an epistolary novel. This Is How You Lose the Time War was another book on that project. And I started reading that, but I didn't finish it. I guess I needed to know the synopsis before I started reading the book. So, and I didn't look up what the book was going to be about. So I started reading the book, just couldn't quite figure out what was happening without the context, and restarted it and just wasn't getting anywhere with it. So I put it aside and then eventually just haven't continued since then. So I need to get back to that one. Another book that was on the list was We Need to Talk About Kevin, another book that I had wanted to read, and I kept getting it confused with another book. And right? I keep getting it confused with another book. I didn't read We Need to Talk About Kevin, did I? No. I keep getting it confused with Nothing to See Here, and I'm not sure why. So We Need to Talk About Kevin is on that list. Then there is a book that I finally did read, was Zenzele, A Letter for My Daughter. And this was about a woman from Zimbabwe whose daughter has just gotten accepted to go to university in the United States. And she writes her letters about their life in Zimbabwe and about her hopes and dreams for her daughter, about how she wants her daughter to discover the world but not lose her love for her home. And that is that's a point of reflection that I might not be able to go too deep in right now, just because of some of the things that have happened to me since I read that book. But it was so meaningful then, and I think it's a book that would probably be even more meaningful now. Wow. Yeah. So the book is a series of letters, and it is expertly written, because in the book, while the mother is trying to she's trying to express, how proud she is of her daughter for going and inhabiting the world and seeing it, she's also showing how some of the same opportunities that her daughter is probably looking for in the outer world are possible if she stays at home, or at least keeps their home in Zimbabwe as her home base. Because some of the same things that her daughter wants to do, she has done, and she shares her experience. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was Zenzele, A Letter from My Daughter. My apologies, but I won't be able to say anything else about that book right now. So those are the books that I had on my list. Seven titles that I had on my list back then. Since then, I've added a few other titles, and my current read is going to be on that list, because Abby Jimenez, yours truly, I should have known from the title. There's a little paper airplane, someone sending a message out into the world, and here you get the two characters, and they're both writing something. I should if I'd looked at the cover a little more closely, maybe I would have intuited that this was about letter writing. It is. I love this so far. So we're reading about two doctors. Our main character, our main female character, is a doctor. Her name's Brianna Ortiz, and she is. The book says her life is seriously flatlining. It's not. It's not really, but she is facing some challenges in that she is up for promotion to become the chief in her hospital, and the person who should be taking over from has announced his retirement more than once. And so she assumes that she's going to get the job, but then he tells her that he is delaying his retirement because they are grooming her competition. And she thinks that that is really unfair because, number one, she is the person who seems to be next in line. There doesn't seem to be any obvious people in the rotation. Nobody else is like applying for the job or angling for the job, and then they're bringing in someone from the outside and giving that person time to become established, to be her competition. And that seems really unfair no matter how you look at it. But then you realize there is another way to look at it that doesn't seem unfair. It actually sounds smart. So the person that they have brought in, the the doctor who's about to retire, explains that they brought in that person so that it wouldn't look like she's just getting the job because there's nobody else there. They're bringing in someone who would be serious competition for her because they know that she can surpass the competition. They know that it would look better, the optics would look better if she had someone that she beat almost for the promotion. And I thought that that was really smart when I thought about the reasons for doing that. So I really like that kind of writing where the author gives the reader an opportunity to really put themselves in the narrative, like put your own opinions in the narrative. Because when she first presented the idea, I was I was completely on board. And then she proposed the opposing idea and I was completely on board with that too. So I like that kind of writing. I think this is the kind of writing where you can tell that the author is thinking about the reader, and anticipating our reaction and giving us exactly what we would need to feel connected to the novel. So I'm really liking that. Then the person that she should be competing with is someone that she is getting to know through letters. And I just really love that because it was so unexpected. Like I said, I hadn't really thought about the title or the cover. And then to find these characters who are not, at least one of them is not an avid letter writer, but to find these letters, and the letters are just so expressive. And it could be like a lot of the things that they're sharing in these letters could be things that you could exchange in text message or that you could say to another person on a phone or face to face. Except if you're not someone who communicates that way in the same way. Like there is something intentional about taking pen and paper and writing, and one of the characters talks about this too, where you are writing and you're committing, so like you're making a commitment to your words on this paper. If you don't edit your letter, then your letter um, reflects so much about you while you're writing the letter. It reflects whether or not you rethink, whether or not you self edit before you send. So do you write and then cross out or write over something? um, do you use correction fluid? Do you guys remember correction fluid? Am I dating myself here? Liquid paper, whiteout. Whiteout we used to call it as in when I was in high school. I know whiteout is the brand, but correction fluid, yeah, do you guys use that? You would never use that on a letter. So I think when you're writing a letter, if you made a mistake, you're more inclined to scratch it out if it's not a formal letter, or some people would just restart the letter. But then if you can write a letter without making any kind of errors in it, does it show that, one, you are supremely eloquent in your writing, or does it just mean that you have written the letter, done all their crossing outs, and then written on another sheet of paper, which can get really time consuming if you're doing this, if you're writing a long letter or if you're doing it frequently. So, yeah, letters, I think, can express so much that is not just the words on the page, right? I could tell what you intended to say and what you did finally say and how you said it, all of that. But yeah, you could have a conversation with someone by text message, but autocorrect and all the suggestions that the phone gives you while you're typing, all of that. The letter reflects you in a way that a lot of those other things, other media don't. um, yeah, it also shows, if you have a thought after, how much time you spend with the letter, like the postscript and the postscript and the postscript. um, ps I love you is a very familiar phrase. I think that comes from letter writing. But yeah, I love letters. And yeah, the two people who are exchanging letters in here are kind of unlikely. At least one of them is kind of unlikely. But I'm just eating up the letters. And I don't know if it's because I am a fan of letter writing as an art. Um, or just because it was so unexpected of a way for these characters to communicate. I don't know. I just love it. I just love it. So Ruby 24, Runwright Reads Girly is here. You are not late. You are just in time. We're talking about the book, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. And I was just saying that the book is epistolary. So I was giving you a list of some epistolary novels that I have been encountering and thinking about recently. And I did not know. I should have known when I looked at this, when I looked at the title. And I think when I first heard the title, Yours Truly is a familiar and frequent way to end letters. But quite often, you'd say yours truly if it's a formal letter. And the letters that are in here are not formal. So far, the letters that I have seen exchanged, none of them have ended with yours truly. People talk about the two people who are writing letters here. They're talking about ways that they would like to end their letters, but even then, they don't end their letters that way. Most frequently, I think, if you are writing a letter to someone that you're familiar with, you'd use something else. Yours truly sounds formal, but if you are not formal, would you still say yours truly? Truly sounds like it should be familiar, but it's formal. I don't know. But I'm going to think a little bit more about this. So I've been reading this and just absolutely loving it because the letter writing was just so unexpected. And I found myself supremely connected with these two characters because of the letter writing connection. Like, I love how even just under 100 pages in, I am just so invested in this act of them writing letters to people that they see in real life but don't communicate with in real life. And it's almost like this covert operation to deliver the letters to the other person, and I love it. So I'm here. I'm here for this book. I'm so happy that I'm reading it. So just backing up with some of the epistolary novels that I mentioned earlier. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society by Schaefer. I forget the name of the author, something Schaefer. But I do have my reading journal, so I can just look and I can just tell you. So I read. Marianne Schaefer is the title. I'm sorry, Marianne Schaefer is the author of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. That's epistolary. Zenzele, A Letter from My Daughter by Mandiwe. I forget the person's first name, and it's hard for me to see it from this really tiny print that's on my journal. But this That right there is what the cover looks like. Zenzele, A Letter for My Daughter, was epistolary novel that I read earlier this year. Other epistolary novels that I had selected, I was working on a project, still working on the project, but the idea was that Rumi24 says the book sounds good, and she just realized that she says this every stream when I read a book. Yeah. You know, there are some books that I read and don't talk too much about here because I don't love them as much. But generally, if I read a book and talk about it here, it's because I'm engaged. I'm really enjoying it for one reason or another. And so when I bring books several times and you hear me talk about them, it's a recommendation, even if I don't say it. So yeah, thank you so much for your feedback. So epistolary books that I was mentioning: The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society by Marianne Schaefer, Zenzele, A Letter for My Daughter by Mandiwe. Those two I have read from the list. The other books that I have not yet read from the list that I curated of epistolary books was Ella Minnow P. Ella Minnow P, which if you say it fast sounds like the letters of the alphabet, Ella Minnow P. Little Blue Encyclopedia was another epistolary book that was recommended to me. This Is How You Lose the Time War was another one that I had started but didn't finish. And We Need to Talk About Kevin was another one that I picked up but didn't yet read. So those are some books that you will probably hear me come back to and talk about if I finish this project by the end of the year. Those were books that I was working on reading for a reading project where I was reading and discussing and intending to review epistolary books. So happy to be adding this to that list. Yours truly by Abby Jimenez. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hanff is another epistolary book that I read. That was my first read in January. And Meet Me at the Museum was another one. That was a little bit different because while I love the book, it is one of those books that I recommend with a caveat because there's something a little inappropriate with the letters that are shared in that book. The book is just the writing, the letter writing is just so exquisite. It is just so beautifully rendered. But there is a little bit of an inappropriate relationship in the book, which gives a little bit of a bad taste. It leaves a little bit of a bad taste. No matter how well written the book is, you have to be able to get past this thing in order to enjoy the book. But I like the book because I could get past that thing. So yeah, that was Meet Me at the Museum, another epistolary book. So I just wanted to share that. I went to the library yesterday to pick up some books and pick up some holes. And these are the two books that came in. We talked about this a few days ago, Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Kawaguchi. Someone was asking if this is connected short stories or if it is a novel. And it is a novel. I think there are lots of characters that we follow in here, but it's a novel. So it is a pretty small book. It is smaller in size and not by much, but it is smaller in size. Can you see that? And it's just about 250 pages. It's under 250. No, it's not. It's 272 pages. So it's not that small. I thought it was small. But this is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Kawaguchi. I don't want to mess up the first name. It's set in Tokyo. There's a cafe that has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years. Local legend says that this coffee shop offers something else besides coffee, the chance to travel back in time. So I will be reading that hopefully soon and letting you know what that one is about. And then we have Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo. When I first heard about this book, I think the first person I heard talk about this book was Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading. Brown Girl Dreaming. Brown Girl Reading. Brown Girl Reading. She's also the curator of the Read So Lit project on Instagram and on here on YouTube. So I think she's the first person who recommended this one to me, Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo. Bernadine Evaristo, won the Booker Prize a few years ago. She shared the prize that year with Margaret Atwood. But Bernadine Evaristo's novel was Girl, Woman, Other. Beautiful, beautiful rendition of womanhood through looking lots of different characters. I love that book. And so far, it's the only thing that I have read from her. So I definitely wanted to read more from that author. And so picked up Mr. Loverman, who I think is a very traditional man, very conservative dandy who has something about his personal life that is completely unexpected if you consider him to be a traditional conservative Caribbean man living in England, I think is how that is expressed. So yeah, his deeply religious and disappointed wife, Carmel. Yeah, the main character in here, his name is Morris. Morris. So Morris is a name that we hear about in Jamaica, a man's name, but you don't hear it a lot in a lot of other cultural expressions. Anyway, that's me. Morris just makes me think about a older Jamaican man. So I don't think I've ever read a book where the main character was a man named Morris before. I don't think I've read a book before with a main character whose name was Morris. So that was just really interesting. Like I know some men from my community with that name, and imagining them in this character, in the role of this character that I expect from the book, because I haven't read the book yet, is just kind of humorous to me. So forgive me for grinning. So these are the two books that I picked up from the library yesterday: Mr. Loverman by Bernadine Evaristo and Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Kawaguchi. And currently reading Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. My cozy little library is on, she says, yay, live. Thank you so much for joining. So we're just talking a little bit about epistolary novels, which I just recognized that this was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, currently reading and loving. So if you have some epistolary novels to recommend, please drop them in the comments, whether live stream or if you're watching this later. Let me know if you have epistolary novels to recommend to me. I love a good letter. I love a good letter. I love a good letter writing project. I love the idea of pen pals. I used to have a lot of pen pals. Some of them I outgrew. One of my pen pals from when I was 14 or 15 years old. We are still very much in touch. We grew up in Jamaica. We were both going to high school in Jamaica at the time when we met. She was in boarding school. I was a day student, a regular student at a school that also had some students that boarded, but not the same school. We were in different parishes. I grew up in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica, and she grew up in St. Anne in Jamaica. And I don't remember how we got each other's contact information, but we started to correspond. And I loved writing to her about, number one, her boarding life, because while I was in school with people who boarded on campus, I wasn't. So a lot of my friends were boarders, but there's a lot about the experience that I didn't necessarily know and may have romanticized. But I also love the fact that I went home to my family every day. So I liked exchanging letters with someone who wasn't going home every day. And so when she went home on weekends or on holidays, she was romanticizing the idea of being at home and sharing that experience with me, someone who was at home every day and probably took some of that for granted, that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed getting to know her when we were teenagers. And we have continued corresponding for decades now, and we are still good friends. We're now both in the United States. She lives in Georgia, and I live in New York. And every now and then we talk on the phone. We talk on social media, not on the phone as much. We talk on social media. We text on the phone. We text, and we've seen each other a few times. We've met a few times. Like I said, we started off as pen pals when we were about 14. When we were about 19 or 20, because we're about the same age. When we were about 19 or 20, We met in Jamaica for the first and only time in Jamaica up to now. But we've met in the United States a few times. And so, yeah, she's still one of my very good friends. I still call her my best friend, um, even though she came to my wedding. How long ago was that now? 7 years ago. So, yeah, we are still good friends. Pen pals can become more. I love that. I love that. So, I love the idea that these pen pals may become something more as well, because something about letter writing, just something about letter writing. So that's what the comments, that's what the discussion has been this morning. Um, Epistolary novel recommendations. Rumi24 Runwright reads girly says she would recommend something, but it is in her language. And what language is that you speak, Rumi? Share the title. Maybe I can find a translation. Share the title. Feel free. maybe maybe I can get the book in your language and have Google translate it for me. That would be fun. My cozy little library has Clarissa on her list. So she said she hasn't read it yet. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write that down. That's a recommendation or a suggestion. And that's a suggestion from my cozy little library. And, maybe we'll be able to add some more titles to the list. I will try to make this video. This is another video that I will try to make before the end of the year. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself in terms of making these videos, which is why I don't want to promise things. See, I wrote recommended. Suggested. Putting it in my reading journal as a suggestion to add to the list. Ooh, caveat, I believe it's around 1,200 pages. I'm going to write that down too. So that will probably be for next year. I think I may stick with some of these titles. I don't think I need to have quite as many of the titles as I do right now on the list. So 18th century book. Okay. All right, Rumi, no problem. You can. Oh, Rumi says she's sorry she can't find the book anywhere. She forgot the name. She was looking for it. That's fine. So, we're on here almost every day. So feel free to share the title whenever you can. But I'll stick with some of the books that I have here. I have to remember that right now we are approaching the end of October. I really only have November and December to wrap up some of the projects that I have, some of the reading projects that I have that I wanted to accomplish this year. So while I want to film and do all the things that I want to film about, I also need to be realistic. As someone who hasn't posted a long form video, like edited video, in months now, I also need to be realistic in what I am planning and promising. So I think what I'm going to do with this project, because it's something that I started back in February and it's now October and I haven't finished it. I mean, I'd gotten a little caught up with some of the other reading commitments. But of the books that I mentioned, I have read The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. I've read Zenzele, A Letter from My Daughter. I have read 84 Charing Cross Road. I could talk about Meet Me at the Museum, which I read a few years ago, but I still remember really well. I know I have a review video of it on the channel somewhere. If you're interested in watching, I could post a link. I could post a link to that one. And I'm currently reading I'm currently reading Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I already have 5 epistolary books that I could talk about in the video. So maybe I'll start with that and maybe two more short ones, and I'll make that video. and then a part two next year. I think that's what I'm going to do. Rumi's asking, is a novel similar to a book? Which novel? So we're talking about the epistolary novels, and they don't have to be long form novels. Like 84 Charing Cross Road is more novella than novel because it's less than 100 pages. But it is epistolary, just that it is sharing letters between fictional characters. And do they have to be fictional? Yeah, fictional characters. So not a collection of letters from one person, which I do have books that are more collections of letters from one person, but more of a story built around two or more people sharing letters or exchanging letters. So I am going to work on that project. I'm going to get back to working on that project before the end of the year. That is my plan. That is my goal, because I'd like to wrap up some of the things that I started. I'd like to wrap up some of the things that I started this year. So that's something that I got to do. All right. So I'm going to have to run because it is almost time for me to go for my appointment. A little shorter today than some other days, but I can't hang out too much longer. So in this video, I shared with you the two books that I hauled from the library yesterday. Very, very excited about them because both of these are on my list of books that I want to read to finish up. Did I say finish up? To make progress on my book challenge that I started. It's a 4-month challenge, and those were just 4 months where I just was not able to work on the three of those months were months that I just could not work on the project. But I have a couple of weeks. I have a week and a couple of days to finish some of these books. So I'm going to see how many of them I can read in order to finish the challenge. I read a few of the books already because of book club, because of the BookTube prize, and me being strategic with choosing titles that I had to read for other things. So I think I have finished maybe 4 of those books. This would be number 5 and 6 and 7. 6, 7. Sorry. I have no idea what the context of that 6, 7 thing is, but it just dawned on me because I've been hearing about it everywhere without understanding really what it means. Does anyone know what it means? But yeah, these are number 6 and number 7 on my list of books that I'm reading towards working on completing that challenge. So yeah, that's what's going on over here today in the bookish life. No, no, that's okay. Sometimes, even though, you're listening to someone, and you're engaged with what they're saying, you are also thinking your own thoughts about the thing that they're talking about. And so sometimes, even when someone is explaining something, you're thinking something a little bit different. That happens to me all the time. Don't worry, that happens to me all the time. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I enjoyed hanging out with you. I enjoyed chatting with you. I'm still talking about this one as well, the Grand Paloma Resort by Clavis Natero. I finished this one, was it yesterday? Yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I finished this one and I really, really liked it. I'm still thinking about some of what was mentioned in here in terms of the history of the Caribbean countries that are mentioned here. The book is set in the Dominican Republic, but it also highlights a little bit of the interaction between Dominican Republic and Haiti. And it mentions some history of people who came from Haiti and had become kind of refugees in the Dominican Republic during a specific time in their shared history. And it's some research that I want to do. And I don't just want to look on Google and see the answer for it. I want to do a little bit of research otherwise. So I'm thinking about how to accomplish that research, but this is one of the books that we're going to be talking about in the Runwright Reads Book Club next Sunday. So if you're interested in joining, let me know that as well. So that's just another book that's over here and kind of on the shared space today. Thank you so much for being here. I have to run. But I truly, truly enjoyed hanging out with you this morning. So if you are watching this as a playback, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and sign up to get notified so you'll know when I'm on here. You can join me live if you can. I'm generally here mid-morning to early afternoon, that time. Wednesdays are a little bit earlier just because I have appointments that I have to leave home a little earlier. But I also don't know what time I'm going to be on here tomorrow. If I will be on here tomorrow, just because I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and it's a new place that I've never been to before. I may need to leave a little earlier just so that I can be sure that I don't be sure that I get there in time. So, just in case you don't see me on here tomorrow, it is because I have a doctor's appointment that I need to keep, and it's at a weird time of the day, so I'm not sure how much I'll be able to be on here before or after. But if we can, we will be here on Friday, even if we miss Thursday. So, thank you so much for being here. I hope you are finding some great books to read. I hope you are enjoying the books. I hope you're enjoying everything that you do, whether you are reading or watching videos or hanging out with your friends or family or going out for walks or runs. All of that. Enjoy, enjoy. I met a lady yesterday. Quick story before we go. So I was in the supermarket, and just as I was turning to head to the cashier, a lady was coming, and she was a slightly older lady, and she was walking with a cane. And I'm just a little bit more aware now of older women, because of some of the things that have happened recently. And so I saw this lady, and so even though I could have clearly passed her, I wanted to give her the space and not make her feel like she was inconveniencing me. So I stood where I was and just let her pass. And she smiled at me and kept going. And then she went to the cashier, and so I turned and went to another cashier because I wanted to give the lady a little bit of space. But the other cashier that I went to, she started doing something, and it was just taking a long time. So as the older lady that I had seen, as she was about to step off, I went back to the cashier that had been dealing with her. But then when I went there, she was just kind of standing there, and it was kind of funny. But because I was like, I wanted to give her space, but it's like fate is just like putting us together. So I stood there, and she had kind of stepped away, but then she came back, and she's standing like really close to me. Not too close, but she's standing like right next to me. So she had on a jacket, because yesterday was a little chilly. So she had on a jacket that said Nike Women's Marathon. And I was like, well, excuse me, did you run in the marathon? And at first, I guess, I'm a little soft-spoken out in the wild. So at first, I don't think she heard me. So I pointed to the decal on her. It was on the sleeve of her jacket. And I said, did you run in that marathon? And she said, yeah, actually I did. And it was this moment of clarity that here is this woman. She's walking with a cane. And she's a little older. She's not necessarily maybe the person you have in mind when you think of a marathoner. But she said, yeah, I ran in that. So I said, was it in New York? Because I wanted to, give her my interest story about marathon running. And so I said, was it in New York? And she said, no, this was in California. And I said, wow, it's amazing. It's, and before I could even get it out, she said, yeah. And now, she said, yeah, it was a long time ago. And I've had 2 hip replacements since. And I was like, at least you ran the marathon. There are lots of people who've had hip replacements and who haven't run marathons. But it was just so nice to meet her. So I wanted to share that with you because it made me just think about a lot of things, and I just wanted to share that with you. So I have to go. I have to go. But this was truly, truly a joy to just spend time with you. You are a big part of my day, a big part of my support team. And I truly, truly appreciate you for being here, whether you are here live or you're watching this as a playback. So I hope you have a wonderful day or evening or night or morning, wherever it is that you are. Enjoy what you do, and I'll see you very soon for the next live. Okay? Talk soon. Bye. Happy reading, happy movie watching, happy everything. Bye.